An ape that is new to science has been discovered buried in an ancient tomb in China. The gibbon has already become extinct, suggesting humans wiped out primate populations long before the modern age.
Just a magnificent looking animal. She's only 3 meters long and didn't have a mark on her. That's what the archaeologists said when they first pulled the skull from the burial pit. It was pristine, no cracks, no weathering, perfectly preserved for 2,200 years. They thought it was a standard gibbon skull, common in ancient Chinese tombs. Royalty loved keeping them as pets. But when Samuel Turvey picked up that skull in 2009, something felt wrong. The teeth were different. The cranium was shaped wrong. The proportions didn't match any living species. He took it back to London, ran it through computer analysis, compared it to every gibbon genus on Earth, and the results stopped the lab cold. This wasn't a known species. It was something new, and it had been extinct for centuries. Nobody had any idea it even existed. The grandmother of China's first emperor was buried with a ghost. The tomb sits near Xi'an, ancient capital, 2,200 years old. When archaeologists opened it in 2004, they found a zoo. 12 burial pits filled with animal bones, a leopard, a lynx, an Asiatic black bear, red-crowned cranes, domestic mammals, birds. This was Lady Xia's menagerie. She died around 247 BC. And according to ancient Chinese custom, everything she loved in life went with her into death. Treat the dead as the living, that was the rule. So her pets were sacrificed, buried alongside her, sealed in the earth for eternity. For 2,200 years, they stayed there, until the dig team uncovered them. Most of the bones were expected. Panthers and bears were status symbols for Chinese elites. But the gibbon skull caught Turvey's attention for one very specific reason. The location was impossible. This tomb is in central China, Shanxi province. The nearest living gibbon population is 1,200 kilometers south, in the jungles of Yunnan and Hainan. Gibbons don't live in central China, not anymore, not for centuries. So whose pet was this? And why does its skull look so strange? Gibbons are small apes. They're the acrobats of the primate world. Long arms. They swing through tree canopies using a form of locomotion called brachiation. They're our closest relatives after the great apes, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans. But gibbons are smaller, lighter, more delicate. There are 4 genera alive today: hylobates, hulock, symphalangus, nomascus. Each one has distinct skull features, distinct teeth, distinct facial structures. When Turvey compared Lady Xia's gibbon to all 4 genera, it didn't match any of them. The molars were unique. The cranium had a different curvature. The jaw proportions were off. This was something else entirely. He brought in Helen Chatterjee, an expert on gibbon morphology at University College London. They measured key points on the skull, ran it through sophisticated computer modeling, multivariate analysis, the kind of math NASA uses to identify unknown objects. The results were clear. This skull was distinct enough to be classified as a new genus and species. They named it Junzi imperialis, Junzi, Chinese for scholarly gentleman or man of virtue, because ancient Chinese noblemen kept gibbons as pets, symbols of wisdom, elegance, qi energy, imperialis, because this one lived with royalty, the Imperial Gibbon. In 2018, the team published their findings in Science, one of the most prestigious journals on the planet. Their conclusion was explosive. Junzi imperialis was an entirely new genus, the only ape species to go extinct in the Holocene, the only primate extinction caused by humans in post-glacial continental ecosystems. This was historic, because until now, we thought we hadn't driven any ape species extinct. Apes were threatened, endangered, on the brink, but not gone, not wiped out. Junzi changed that. It proved humans had erased an entire genus of ape before we even knew it existed. But there was a problem, a big one. The Chinese government wouldn't let them extract DNA. The skull was too fragile, too valuable. Museums are protective of their artifacts, especially ones this rare. No DNA means no genetic confirmation. Everything was based on morphology, physical measurements, skull shape, tooth size, and some scientists were skeptical. Terry Harrison, a biological anthropologist at NYU, he suggested maybe it wasn't a new species at all. Maybe it was a captive animal with growth abnormalities. Captive animals often show morphological differences: malnutrition, stress, confinement. These things warp bone development, and without DNA, you can't prove it's a separate genus. You're just making educated guesses based on shape. The debate continued for 7 years. Museums, universities, conferences, arguments, papers, rebuttals. And then 2025 happened. Professor Fu Qiaomei, Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology, Chinese Academy of Sciences. She's a legend in the ancient DNA community. She led a massive genomic study of gibbons, chromosome-level reference genomes, whole genome resequencing of 18 extant species, mitochondrial genomes from 3 ancient specimens, including Junzi imperialis. This time, Chinese authorities approved DNA extraction. Fuse team drilled into the gibbon's teeth. Ancient mitochondrial DNA. First time ancient gibbon DNA had been successfully recovered in East Asia. The region's humid climate normally degrades genetic material, high heat, high moisture. DNA breaks down fast, but they succeeded. They sequenced it. And in November 2025, the results published in Cell. The DNA revealed something shocking. Junzi imperialis was not a separate genus. It was a new species within the existing genus Nomascus, the same genus as today's critically endangered crested gibbons. The 2018 classification was wrong. The skull looked different because of individual variation, regional adaptation. Not because it was a whole new genus. It's now officially Nomascus imperialis, the imperial gibbon, a Nomascus species, 7 years of debate, settled by DNA. But here's where it gets emotional. The DNA analysis revealed Nomascus imperialis's closest living relative, the Hainan gibbon, Nomascus hainanus, living on Hainan Island in southern China, the rarest mammal on Earth. In 2018, only 26 individuals remained. One population, one forest, one fragile thread away from total extinction. By 2025, the number climbed slightly. Fewer than 40 individuals, still critically endangered, still on the brink. If they go extinct, the last genetic link to Nomascus imperialis dies with them, sister species, separated by extinction. One gone, one barely hanging on. Think about that. The imperial gibbon's closest relative is the rarest ape on the planet, and we almost lost them both without ever knowing they were connected. So what happened to Nomascus imperialis? Why did it go extinct? The skull from Lady Zia's tomb is from central China, Shanxi province, but DNA analysis included another specimen, a 4,000-year-old gibbon from Yamao, cave in Chongqing. That's a wild individual. Not a pet, not buried in a tomb. Just a gibbon living in the forest 4,000 years ago. Which means Nomascus imperialis lived across central China, far north of where gibbons live today. Historical Chinese records mention gibbons as far north as the Yellow River. Classical paintings from the Ming and Qing dynasties depict gibbons with varied colors and facial markings, different from any modern species. The imperial gibbon may be the tip of the iceberg. A whole suite of gibbon species lived across China and went extinct recently, possibly as late as the 18th century, 300 years ago. Why? The answer is brutal. Deforestation. Gibbons are arboreal. They live in tree canopies. They swing branch to branch. They can't cross gaps. If you cut down the trees, you isolate the populations, and isolated populations die. China's central region supported the highest human population density in the world. For millennia, agriculture expanded, cities grew, forests were raised. By the late imperial period, most lowland forests were gone. Only high elevation forests remained, and gibbons prefer lowland forests, the warm, humid river valleys. The habitat they needed vanished. Add in hunting, the pet trade, capture for wealthy collectors, climate shifts during the Little Ice Age. By 200 BC, Nomascus imperialis was probably in decline. By 1800 AD, extinct, and nobody noticed, because we didn't know they existed. Today, all 4 surviving gibbon species in China are critically endangered. The Hainan gibbon, the Skywalker Hulak gibbon, the eastern black-crested gibbon, the Sauvit gibbon. Fewer than 1,500 individuals total across all 4 species, combined. If China can't protect them, they're gone. We can't even quantify what we lost, says James Hansford, Zoological Society of London, because we don't have the records of it. Classical Chinese paintings show gibbons that look nothing like modern species. How many went extinct before we could study them? How many are buried in tombs we haven't excavated? The archaeological record is our only window, and it reveals a catastrophic loss. The 2025 DNA study did more than reclassify Junzi. It reconstructed the entire gibbon family tree. Using whole genome alignments, researchers resolved the phylogeny. Hylobates, then Nomascus, then Symphalangus, then Hulak. Ancient metagenomes from 3 specimens, including Nomascus imperialis, confirmed it. The study also revealed population dynamics. Between 100,000 and 200,000 years ago, all gibbon species experienced severe population bottlenecks. Climate change, habitat shifts, ice age pressures, gibbons barely survived. And then humans arrived and finished the job. Conservation genomics analysis shows critically low genetic diversity, especially in Hulak gibbons, high inbreeding. They're on the brink. Ecological niche modeling reveals historical habitat suitability. Gibbons once occupied vast ranges across Asia. Now, they're fragments, isolated patches, islands of survival in a sea of human development. The study also identified a genetic secret, a 205 base pair deletion in the sonic hedgehog gene. Associated with gibbons' elongated limbs, their signature long arms, evolved for brachiation. This genetic adaptation allowed them to dominate forest canopies, but it also made them vulnerable, because when forests disappear, so do gibbons. Lady Zia's gibbon is more than a fossil. It's a warning. For 2,200 years it sat in a tomb, buried with a woman who probably loved it, who kept it as a pet, who valued it enough to take it to the afterlife. But that reverence didn't save its species. Gibbons were symbols of scholars. They appeared in art, in poetry, in philosophy. They were revered, and still they went extinct. Because cultural value doesn't stop deforestation. Symbolism doesn't prevent habitat loss. The broader message is this: we're underestimating past extinctions. Primatologist Joe Setchell puts it bluntly: we might have underestimated the number of primate extinctions caused by humans in the past. Understanding these losses helps us predict how vulnerable current species are, and protect them more effectively. Because Damascus imperialis isn't just history, it's a preview. The Hainan gibbon, its closest living relative, is next. Unless we act. Fewer than 40 individuals, one forest, one population. If that forest is logged, if those trees are cut, the Hainan gibbon goes extinct, and the Imperial gibbon's legacy dies with it. The 2025 DNA study corrected 7 years of scientific classification. Junzi isn't a separate genus, it's Damascus. But the correction doesn't change the tragedy. A species went extinct, recently, because of humans, and we didn't even know it existed until it was already gone. How many other species have we lost? In tombs, in caves, in forests we've already destroyed. Species that never made it into the historical record, that died before we could name them. The Imperial gibbon is one we found by accident, because a grandmother wanted her pet buried with her. Without that tomb, we'd never know. So, here's the question. Do you think there are more extinct ape species hidden in tombs across China? And does this discovery change how you see extinction? We think of it as ancient history, dinosaurs, mammoths, ice age giants. But the Imperial gibbon went extinct 300 years ago, maybe less. That's recent, that's during the Renaissance, during the Industrial Revolution, during recorded history. And we had no idea. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story hit you, smash that like button and subscribe. We're uncovering more extinct species, more lost civilizations, more secrets buried in tombs. You don't want to miss what we find next. Thanks for watching.